an uneasy feeling. Let me tell you, have you ever felt like you lived in two different dimensions all at the same time? I have. Let me tell you my story. When I was 27, I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, which is a actually God-sent gift. Your brain splits when there's trauma, and there's different personalities that hold the pain and the trauma until later when you no longer need that to survive, and you can listen and find out what secrets they're holding from you. Anyway, so I am in the middle of this journey. I have a counselor named Leah who is a godsend blessing to me. And her and her husband are pastors of a church, and I think I needed that spiritual person to have the grace that she did to counteract everything else that had happened earlier in my life. But those are earlier stories. So here I am. I am finally listening to the different personalities that I have. I'm finally kind of sticking around and hearing what trauma they've gone through and what's going on. They have finally learned to trust Leah. Or I should say, I trusted Leah, and slowly but surely each little part had to learn to trust Leah. It wasn't just something that was done right away. Trust takes time to build. And so I am, to give you an example, I am in Leah's office, and I am going there. We're set up for a counseling appointment, and there was a part that came out. And the thing with Leah, like, we didn't do hypnosis. We didn't do anything to give me ideas. She was just there. Who wants to talk to me? What do you want to say? I'm here. I'll listen. Like, literally, she didn't pry anything out of me. She was just there to listen. And so whoever wanted to talk, whoever felt safe enough to talk, would talk. But what would often happen, and it happened way more than 5 times, what would often happen is when they would come out, I would no longer be in Leah's office. It was as if I was transported back in time to where they were and when the trauma was happening. So the anxiety and the fear and everything just increased tenfold. And I can remember Leah getting closer to me. She scooted her chair over. She asked if that was okay, and she asked if she could hold her hand, and they most of the time said yes, and she would hold their hand. And it was as if, from my perspective, watching this happen to a different part of me and Leah, it was as if I was in today's day and age, and yet back in time. And Leah's hand was like extending through a portal in space and time. I'm not kidding. It is literally how it felt. And she was hanging on to the little one, and she kept saying, "You are not back there. It is not happening anymore. Stay here with me. Stay here in my office. You are in my office. Don't go back. You can tell me what happened, but you don't have to relive it. It is okay." And I sit and I look back at that, and I'm just like, how does the mind do that? We have such an incredible, amazing mind. And what was really awesome, so that little one was hanging on to Leah's hand, and she was telling them not to live it. And she was able to share just how she, what had happened to her. And she would go back and forth. She would be in Leah's office, and then she'd be back there, and Leah would go, no, stay here. I've got you. Don't go back there. You're not reliving it. It's not rehappening. You can talk to me. And to have someone like Leah who knew what to say, she was figuring it out as I was figuring it out, because every person is different. No matter how many people you've worked with, each person is different, and you just need to know what they need. And she just knew exactly what to say for these little ones. And after they ended up sharing their story, Leah would say, "Can I pray for you?" And they would, and Leah would just pray for peace. Leah would just pray, and there were so many different times where God just released them from the past, from that trap place that they were, and just brought them into the present moment where they knew they were safe, and they were no longer in pain, and they were no longer sitting there waiting for something horrible to happen. And it was such an amazing time. And I think that is why I like sci-fi, crazy, weird movies with time-space problems, because I feel like I lived that for so long when I was working through my trauma. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and I have so much more to tell.